recruiter burnout. The strategies to support recruiters in this volatile mess of hiring that we're in. Really what we're going to be going through in terms of agenda items are a panel introduction of myself, Tim, and Joss, the volatile state of talent acquisition, what is burnout, how to catch it before it happens, the signs and symptoms, tips and tools to help with recruiter burnout once it happens, and recruiter appreciation sweepstakes winner announcement, because we've had a contest going on for a month or so. And so somebody's going to get a $500 gift card to a spa of their choice. So a little introduction of myself. My name is Chloe. Previous to Visage, I've been working in the recruitment space since 2017. So before the pandemic, when it was very much an employer's market, through the pandemic, when it became very much an employee market, and now in this kind of mess that we're in, where we're all trying to figure it out. Really, I live in Toronto, North America. I work global division. So seeing it across the world and not just in certain areas, like I said before, all industries. We also have Joss, our CEO and founder of Visage here. I'm going to let him introduce himself, as well as Tim Sackett, who is a fantastic HR talent resource here to share his thoughts. So go ahead, guys. Joss, you can start.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. Thanks for having me. Very excited to talk about this topic. It's very dear to me. You know, I've been in recruiting now for 17 years. The first 10, I was a recruiter. And, you know, I can remember the 2008 recession and how that made me feel. I can remember, you know, early 2021 when the pandemic hit and what that meant for our industry. So thank you for having me. Very excited to participate. Yeah.
Perfect. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, hey everybody. Tim Sackett. I actually write every single day at timsackett.com. Tim Sackett Project Blog. I've been doing that for about a decade. Wrote a book called The Talent Fix on what I would do if I came in to run your TA shop. And then I speak, and I actually run a staffing firm. So I actually have a team of recruiters today, and have been running that shop for a long time. So I feel like not only have I been a recruiter, but I'm also managing that burnout stress right now on my own team and trying to figure out how to help them. And it's kind of interesting because we have a lot of corporate folks on the webcast today, and I've obviously agency, and Joss, I'm interested to see what you think as well. I've always had this impression that being an agency recruiter was more difficult and more stressful than being a corporate recruiter. And I think that's pretty typical of a thought process traditionally. Right now, though, I feel it's flipped. I feel if you're a corporate TA leader and recruiter, your job is much more stressful than an agency recruiter, because an agency recruiter can pick and choose what work they want to work. And there's all kinds of work right now. So they give a lot of good work to pick and choose from, and you can really pick, you know, those who want to work with you the most. Whereas in corporate, if you have a lot of crappy hiring managers, like there's nothing, you have to work with them, and it's never ending, and they're not helpful, and all of those things that I think lead to burnout even faster. And so I've had a couple of agency recruiters that got cherry picked from us, you know, from like all these massive, like, you know, kind of pay increases that we've seen over the last probably 18 months. And both of them like have come back and we're like, he's like, this job sucks.
I'm not surprised. There is no safety net, you know. I agree. Agency, you can perhaps pick and choose, and the economics were favorable because of, you know, the demand. So you could get good money, hit your goals. Whereas I don't know many corporate recruiters that have been able to hit their goals. It was just, you know, in the past year or so.
Yeah. It's a false belief that corporate TA job is fat and cushy and easy. It's right now, it's never been harder. And I don't necessarily foresee, you know, not to like throw bad news on a recruiter burnout webcast, but it's not going to change anytime soon, right? Demographically in the US, we have a problem. We have 12 million open jobs. We have 50-year historic unemployment. If you think back in 2019, we were at 3.5% unemployment. We had around 7 million open jobs. So we have 5 million more open jobs now, same unemployment rate. And we have fewer and fewer humans coming into the US because both the last two administrations have kept our borders closed. And so we really have a people issue right now. We don't have enough humans and we're not creating more humans. So it's like, how do we really deal with that? And I think that, again, that leads us to this concept of, we have so many recruiters across the board that are burned out.
Yeah, definitely. And that really brings us to the next state of like what everybody's talking about, from frontline workers to doctors to lawyers. There in every single industry is a deficit. So with the last like 3 years in this wild ride, what do you guys think are the biggest challenges that people are facing, and how do we really get prepared for that?
If I can reflect, let's just take the last 2 years and change, like March to June 2020, COVID hit. 60% of my TA friends got laid off or, furloughed. And that was like the light switched off. And then right away after, stimulus in the economy, hiring left and right, now they are the most wanted people in the world. So they got the door shut on them, then reopened like wide for the first time in history. Like you had 3 times as many jobs for recruiters and software developers. You could be like a few years in the job and get the 6-figure salary. That recruiter is a career. And now, recession, what does that mean? But still the employment is so low. Like, that's like the anxiety that the turmoil is bringing. I don't know what you think, Tim, but I'm just reflecting on what is up.
It is great because we're just starting to hear like some layoff stuff around Silicon Valley, especially. Part of that to me is not necessarily recession related. It was, if you were in the tech space over the last 2.5 years, you were hiring like a drunk sailor, right? You hired anybody and everybody at any wage they wanted. And we just went insane. And we all kind of like to hate on Elon Musk, one of your Austin neighbors there, Joss, but he said, go pretend to work someplace else in a tweet, right? Which is like when they were calling everybody back to work. Well, I think what happened is like a lot of the tech companies started really catching up on their hiring and determined, man, you know what, we probably made some hires that are working remotely or working hybrid or whatever that aren't really producing. And so when we start to see these 5%, 8%, 10%, kind of layoffs, a lot of that is more right sizing than recession related, right? It's like, hey, we're fat and happy. And now we kind of got to get back to, being a little more lean and mean, especially when you see the stock market issues. That's just financially related, right? It's just like, hey, cut your expenses, show your stakeholders that you're doing the right thing. But I still look at it as we could eliminate half of the open jobs now. We go from 12 million to 6 million.
Right.
That still puts us back at 2019 levels of hiring, which if you remember back before the pandemic in November of 2019, it felt like it was impossible to find talent. And so it's not much better than what we're at right now, right? It's still going to be a very difficult hiring, problem that we have really, in my estimate, moving forward over the next probably 2 to 3 years.
And what strikes me is that going on the, being a recruiter is sexy, right? Like you get the high paying, it's highly paid, and there are a lot of job opportunities. But I see so many people jumping ship, wanting to get the higher salaries, and then they realize that they are set up for failure because the hiring goals, they've got 40, 60 recs that they need to navigate. They are entering a team that is entirely new. Most likely their colleagues don't know how the organization works. They just arrive like them. And they are working with hiring managers who are also new or are going to leave halfway through the hiring cycle as they are busy trying to find people with them. And so it's like they are being pulled the rug under them. And what's even trickier is that once you get that $120,000 job, you got the golden handcuffs. How do you go? And even if the pressure is high and you can't stand at the culture, how do you go back? Like
you build a lifestyle around it. Absolutely. And then so that's why people are getting burnt out, right? Because they can't leave. They have to make it work.
I think that's
It's,
one of
it's
the reasons.
right, because we went from having, like, if you, like you had talked about, Josh, of having, like, I think at one point it was, more that, more, recruiter openings and software engineering openings on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So you had ultimate, like, the choice. But at a point, even though there might be hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of choices out there, if you're at the top of the pile, like, your choices are limited. And I think that's one of those burnout kind of triggers, right? Is that you feel like there's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere to turn, which then starts to feel really heavy on your shoulders.
And then you see the headlines, the recessions. You're like, no, are we back to, yeah. So what is burnout?
Yeah, Steve, really great point. You can't leave, you can leave, right?
Yeah. But we all have a choice, right? We have, but sometimes we create fewer choices by our living situations, feeling like we don't have a choice, but we could always live with less, right?
Absolutely. So how do we just make sure we, don't get there? Because what is the impact of it? It's going to really bring down every part of the organization. If your hirers, the people who are in charge of hiring, bringing in new people, are burnt out, what is that going to say for your org?
Yeah, I think, for me, there's a piece of this where you can't have burned out recruiters going out and recruiting better talent or best talent or the best talent in your marketplace, because they're not truly going to believe into their job, into your brand, all of those things. It becomes really difficult. And so as leaders, we have to figure out ways that we can either reduce burnout, eliminate burnout, or find a way to get them into another role, right? That, is not going to make them feel that way. Because the last thing we need is having burned out recruiters trying to recruit those people that we need, because it's never going to be successful for them.
Yeah, I was talking about the impact as well with talent acquisition leaders, and they're in this vicious cycle where they don't really want to, like, push their recruiters on training, on best practices, because they're like, I can't ask anything of them anymore. I've had half of the team leave, and it just creates this vicious circle where they are not set up for success. The change management is probably on pause, and that's got an impact also on driving the talent acquisition team forward.
Yeah, it's kind of it goes against what we would normally think. Like, how do you decrease burnout? And you say, oh, well, give them less workload. That will help. Not necessarily, right? Because that it actually might stress them out even more when they feel like you're taking things away. I agree with you, Josh. I think if we give them better training, better tools, some of those things, what happens is they become successful. What I find is that rarely, if ever, have I ever met someone who's burned out that's highly successful current, right? You might be highly successful in your career and you've reached all these goals and stuff, but in the moment, are you feeling successful? And if they're feeling successful, rarely do you feel burned out. But we tend to want to just pull back from them, which actually will reduce their likelihood to be successful, instead of saying, how do we give you all of those things you need to be successful?
So I've got a recruiter who gave me put me in her shoes, and she said 2019 I had 20 recs to work with at any one time. My response rate on LinkedIn was 40%. 40% of the candidates because I'm very crafty, I write a very engaging message. Fast forward now, she's got 45 recs at any one time. Her response rate, it's pretty good. I wish all the recruiters had 17%.
That's still good, yeah.
Twice as much workload and half the return. For sure, it creates like immense anxiety, especially on these people who are great. Thinking about these their metrics and so on.
Yeah, Steve made a comment. It was just on a Teams call with a distributed TA team, and the exhausted look on the faces was palatable. And I know Steve really well. He speaks the truth. I think we all see this when you see that exhausted look. But I also does think it goes to me, it goes to if we really are truly building a culture of recruitment. Because here's what happens. I think here's what leads to that exhausted look is you have a recruiter who knows they have too many recs, but it's the job. They have to take it on. And so they do, but then we also have an executive team that still expects them to be recruiting like they had the right amount of recs. And you can't, you're just at that point administering a recruiting process. So I think part of that is validating to them, not only as a TA leader to say, hey, look, we understand that you're not going to recruit the same way that you have, or that way you want. Here's the things we're doing to try to get you there. But even more important is to have an executive team that also understands that, that's willing to come and talk to them, that's willing to show, like, send message to them individually, that's willing to even show appreciation and thanks for the work that was done. And what I find so often is that they don't think that way. But as a TA leader in the past, when we've been in this situation, I prompted my executives to kind of reach out to individual, kind of recruiters and give that word of encouragement, let them know, hey, we understand the situation you're in. And so we get it, right? And some of that helps, just having that understanding, that, because I think it's too often the recruiters feel like it's on their shoulders to do all of this, and there's not a lot of help there from the business,
Yeah, and I think that extra hand goes a long way for the recruiter, just to even know they have the support, and that the company is working to make it easier. Because when you wake up knowing maybe tomorrow there'll be a change, that hope is the best sale that you can provide, and actually working to provide the resources is going to empower them. I love that. So I want to just ask the audience if anybody can raise their hand and let me know if you've experienced any of these. If you're too shy, you don't have to, but 4 participants like immediately were
Yeah, both hands. Can I raise my feet up as well?
Yeah.
I remember, so Joss and I talked about, he was a recruiter for 10 years. I was probably a recruiter for about that as well in my life. I remember one morning looking in the mirror and literally saying out loud to myself, and my wife was asleep, my kids were asleep, so I knew I had to go to work, right? If I looked at myself and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I cannot do this anymore. And then I knew I was burned out at that point. I had to find something right to do.
Yeah. And so this morning I was with my therapist, and we're talking about my day. And I told her I'm doing a webcast on burnout, and she told me, "Wow, you're gonna have a lot to say." What do you mean?
As you can see, everyone is coming from the top down. It's not just at the recruiter level, which it's showing.
Yeah, I mean it's inevitable, and so what I call, you got these external factors. There is the economic situation, there is the pressure, and some, at times it's going to be high up there, low, and being able to navigate and note if we are feeling any of these is essential.
Would you say there's any that we missed? Anybody in the panel, or anybody that's watching, any participants? Did we miss any of these burnout symptoms? I mean, some of them.
I think one is health related in terms of either weight gain or weight loss, right? You start to see those things kind of creep in when you're highly stressed out, highly burned out.
Yeah. Feeling behind. Yeah, absolutely.
I get cynical, and I don't know why. That's like, if I start being negative and seeing the bad, that's definitely a warning sign for.
Yeah, maybe start ordering food more instead of cooking yourself dinner. Maybe start skipping meals. It looks different for everybody. Sometimes it's weight gain, weight loss.
Steve McLean made not being present with family and friends, but sometimes even peers and coworkers, right? You start to disengage because of a lot of those things. So definitely symptoms from there.
Awesome. Well, just a little quote that we had in real time is, a personal story that we had. So I can just read this out, but right now recruiters are digging deep to find the hire and the talent for the open position. Keep in mind, all recruiters are doing this in the same places, right? So they're working hard to please their customers and their stakeholders, and they're getting grief from the top down for not meeting the SLAs, because we're all in the same kind of race trying to get there. So the struggle is definitely real, and we're all feeling it. I think this quote could probably be found in every single organization somewhere. And it's very true to what's going on. Great.
I think tech has had a big impact on our SLAs. Just to kind of mention that, we used to have this traditional like 24 to 48 hour SLA thing with most of TA, right? Where this is how fast we're going to get back to a candidate. This is how we're hiring managers, blah, blah, blah. And the technology has been moving so fast that really that's kind of reduced to like 24 to 48 minutes, right? We have candidates who expect immediate connection. We have hiring managers that expect us to immediately find them somebody, yet they'll still take their sweet 48 hours, sometimes 48 days to respond. But, again, that's my own burnout issue. But, but we have this kind of this technology tech stack that's starting to push us so quickly that really the only humanly you couldn't do it, right? You have to have some AI embedded kinds of things to be able to kind of say, how do we move that quickly?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that comes to tips and tricks and tools to really empower that team to get ahead of that burnout. So just a list that we've kind of put together that we really focus on when it comes to Visage, and we're very transparent in all areas of the business of how to make sure that this doesn't happen. SMART goals, really. So what do you guys think about how teams are doing this, and is it achievable, or is it just kind of nice to have on paper?
Go ahead, Joss.
I think for me, the first step is to talk about it, normalize it. So your last bullet point. Since I started being pretty open about mental health, seeing a therapist, having felt burnout before, and I feel people in the organization, my colleagues, people around me have opened up as well, and they tell me that what I wrote resonated with them, and it feels good to my first reaction when I was experiencing that was to hide it. I'm the CEO. We've got 80 people in the company. I'm gonna make everybody freak out if I say that I've got down days, or there are days where I'm not feeling it. There are days where they are just really hard. And I think this is the opposite. People are rating. People feel that they can talk about it, and then we can better discuss on how to support them. I've got colleagues who are just like, hey, we've got this team meeting. I was supposed to be ready. I'm not. And I just don't feel like it. Can we post? And it's like, okay, yeah, for sure. Let's do it. Well, as before, they would just drive on this anxiety wave and have to deliver this goal, this presentation, and so on. And now that we open the dialogue, I think everybody's happier.
I got two strategies. One is getting our executive team to understand that working harder isn't a talent acquisition strategy. Because here's what happens, right? Is they come to us and they'll say, oh my gosh, we didn't meet our goals for Q1. So for Q2, we need to increase our hiring by 100 more people or 1,000 more people, or whatever your size of your organization is. When we have the data to show capacity of our recruiting team, and we're like, look, we'll work harder, we'll work 24/7. And then if you actually look at the data, it wouldn't matter, right? You could work 24/7 and you still would not reach that goal, but yet no one's willing to tell our executive team, no, that's not going to happen. And here's why. I can show you the data of why this won't happen. Now, I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying it's not going to happen in the current state. If you want it to happen, here's what we need from a tools, from a headcount perspective, from a resource perspective. And now we can have a real strategic conversation. And because I think once we are empowered to do that, again, we tend to have less burnout when we can actually say, no, that's not going to happen. But we back it up with data, right? The other one I say, and we did this for our recruiting team, was we allowed them to fire a hiring manager. We just say, look, you come to us and say, I can't anymore, right? And we have this conversation. Now you might say, hey, you can do that as an agency. We couldn't do it corporately. The whole reason I had that idea to give that to him was because we did this corporately. So I actually did this corporately before I did it in an agency environment. And here's how it works. You have a hiring manager who's just terrible to work with. They don't give you the feedback. They don't give you the times to set up interviews. They're holding up your entire process and making you less efficient. I always told my thing, you can cancel that rec, but we're going to have the conversation. We're going to tell them that we're going to cancel the rec, because what's going to happen? they're going to lose their minds. They want to call the CEO or the VP or whoever's above them and complain about us, the TA team. And I said, I actually want to make that conversation happen because I want them to be upset and yelling at the VP about me, the recruiter, or my recruiting team. So I can tell that VP exactly what they're not doing to fill their end of the bargain. Because as soon as I had that conversation with that hiring manager, they go, no, I don't want to have that conversation. Don't call the CEO, because they know they're being an idiot, but they're trying to push the blame onto you instead of saying, hey, we have to work together. Now, part of that is a lot of hiring managers don't see us as a peer. They see us as a vendor, and we've allowed that to happen, and we need to stop that and say, no.
Yeah.
That hiring manager would never go to the finance department and say, or not respond to when they say, hey, we need your budget for 2023. They wouldn't ignore that, because the finance department would say, no more budget for you. And the CEO would lose their mind and somebody would lose their job. But somehow in talent acquisition, we go, oh, it's okay if you treat us like dogs and don't give us the respect we need. Well, no, it's not okay. We're a peer. Treat us like a peer.
Yeah, that is.
Am I in a soapbox right now, man? I feel like I'm in religion, like a therapy session.
No. I honestly, like, looking at the comments, pretty bang on. Everybody seems to be feeling the same kind of pressure from the top down. Luckily, Joss, you get very in the weeds and don't kind of push the work on people. But I feel like maybe in a large organization that can be difficult. So for those hiring managers, what would you say is a strategy for them? Like, how can they work around it so that they don't get, pushed into that?
You mean for recruiters, so they don't get pushed into?
Yeah. So for the hiring manager who's like working with the recruiters, how do they make sure that they follow suit and actually practice what they preach to their recruiters?
Yeah, well, I think taking a keen interest on, what the recruiter does, and not just come at the 11th hour and say, oh, I really like the 4 candidates presented, but I would really like to see 3 more. Come on, guys, be in our shoes for a minute. Let's review candidate list and let's be realistic on what is possible. So I think that's being able to say no, to set expectations to the hiring manager, essential. And then, gosh, I just wish I had, as a hiring manager, when I work with, my HR team, and like Elena, for instance, who is on the podcast, who is listening to this, like, I'm really taking a keen interest on how the pipeline is building, the messaging, and I'm like, you can send emails on my behalf as an example to be more engaging, not just let them do and then complain that it's not happening fast enough and the candidates are not the right one.
Joss, I love that. I mean, I would actually, when I was a recruiter, would work with hiring managers to try to trust me enough to use their work email to send messages out, because it was so much more impactful and effective and efficient.
Tim, the data, we have it because on our platform, you can outreach using your recruiter email, but you can also use your hiring manager. So and when you email as a VP of engineering, the response rate is 42% higher.
Yeah.
Come on, that's just like evidence here. And then you can have the hiring manager see the responses, be involved. They usually have like 1 or 2 jobs to fill, whereas you as a recruiter, you've got 40. So it's a partnership, as you said earlier.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I also like the same thing of anytime a hiring manager takes a vested interest in actually owning the talent on their team. So I like sourcing sprints as well, where the hiring manager brings in the recruiter or whoever's supporting them, brings in their team, and they open up their LinkedIns and they open up their Facebooks and everything, and just starts going, okay, who do we know? And just start helping, right? Throwing names and leads together. I think it helps us reduce burnout when we know the people that we're working with have our success in mind, have the organizational success in mind, when they feel like we're all working for the same thing and we're on the same page. When they feel like they're working against us is when we tend to get burned out, I believe,
Absolutely.
Margot, I think you have a question or a comment.
Oh, I was just saying that as a hiring manager in the past, I never got any onboarding by the recruitment team on how to be a good partner to them. So I would just make the recommendation for
that's
recruiters
good.
to actually do an onboarding for hiring managers. Hey, here's how our recruitment process works. Here's all the things that I'm going to do for you. And here's what I expect you to do for me, so that we can actually create this partnership together. So I think an upfront conversation would be very helpful.
Love that.
Right. And Margot is our content manager at Visage. She's the one who orchestrated this webinar for us.
Great. Those are all incredible talking points. I think that people on this call can maybe help navigate through this recruiter burnout. So don't be shy, bring it forward to your team and try to implement the changes before the burnout happens. So tools that we can use. So basically getting into a little bit more of a strategic approach. What can we do to ease the pain points and the really mundane parts of the job for a recruiter?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of the technology we have, actually utilizing it to the fullest. So first instead of complaining about the tech you have, first become a super user of the tech you have, because then you can really, say, in a sophisticated way, what it doesn't have or what it does have in terms of what you need or don't need. So many times I hear from someone that says, oh, well, we need a different ATS or a sourcing tool or whatever. And then you ask, well, why? And they'll say, well, my team's only using 30% of the ATS. Well, what would happen if they used 100% of it? What would happen if they actually used it? And then, because what happens is they can actually end up automating a lot of those kind of tactical things that makes them less efficient, takes things away. And I think that helps a lot. So I really agree with that.
I think part of the anxiety is not, knowing how to leverage our technologies that are at our disposal properly. If you feel very at ease, we always felt, you get a new job and suddenly you change the system, ATS, the entire workflow. This is a major source of, anxiety. Your productivity goes down. So yeah, taking the time to educate yourself, go on the training and be really good at it. I agree, team. And then strategize, like the example I was giving earlier. If you are going to carry twice as many racks as you are used to, and you know that your ROI on your action is going to be half of what it used to be because of candidates being so high demand, then you really need to find something that's going to make you 4x more efficient to have the same results. And going back on the recruiter burnout, what is the thing that makes us feel better is progress, is feeling that you are achieving something, you are getting somewhere. And so how do you get 4x more efficient at sourcing? How do you get 4x more efficient at screening and interviewing? And unless you can, I don't know, type 4 times faster or click 4 times faster, you're gonna use some of these technology that are out there. And not everything is expensive, and there are free tools that you can bring in your own toolbox, not having to necessarily involve your talent acquisition leader, but then really engage your TA manager about those new tools, this technology. I think one of the source of burnout and also recruiters leaving is working with antiquated technology. Like in developers like CTOs and VP of engineering, they know it very well. If you want to attract talent, the best software engineers in the world, don't give them technologies from the 90s. And that's what's happening to a lot of our recruiters today. Just like, I can't do my job properly. Why would I stick around? I just want to go where they have a modern ATS, where they've got a CRM, where they've got some AI automation for my sourcing, a chatbot for to schedule my interviews. That's what they need.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, it sounds cliche, but it's working smarter instead of harder, right? And AI is exactly that.
I was working with a TA team recently. They had 2,000 openings. They have 10 recruiters. They have some ops people, tech, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, it's 10 recruiters and the heavy lifting of 2,000 openings. And so we said, what if we prioritized, which they'd already had, and their priority list was 1,600 of the 2,000, right? So we're like, well, that's not really a priority. What if we went to the leadership team? They had like about 7 unit functional leaders and said, here's all your openings. So broken down to wherever function you had. you can only choose 10% as a priority. And those are the ones our team's going to actually focus on. The other 90%, if your team wants to fill them, great. If they can find people, great. But we're not actually looking at those on a day-to-day basis. They'll be posted, they'll get recruitment marketing dollars, they'll get advertising, they'll get all of that. And we're going to have some inflow, right? But in terms of really going out and making sure that we focus on and fill positions, it's only going to be your top 10%. Oh my gosh. It changed the culture of that company in terms of when you had senior leaders now going, I have 100 openings. What are the 10 that we can fill and focus on this week, this month, whatever that might be? It changed the conversation in the organization. It was super dynamic because all of a sudden it took really that heavy weight off the shoulder of the recruiter. They no longer had 100 openings. They had 10. And they felt like they could really make something happen. And then what we know is little by little, right? They started to have an impact on the overall number of what they were doing. But we tend to try to eat the elephant in one bite instead of one bite at a time, you know?
One step,
and so I think that's super important. And I just have to give a shout out, you know, my team has been using Visage for about 1.5 years now. And it's amazing. And it's not that I don't have recruiters that aren't good sourcers, because we've trained them and they have all the tools. It's the capacity thing. We use Visage when our recruiters are overwhelmed, but yet we still, you know, have openings that we need to fill. And it's been amazing. So again, you guys didn't bring me on to do that commercial, but as a user that loves, as a user that's had a lot of success, and that writes about a lot of technology, like I even hate sharing it because I don't want my competitors to know about it. So.
Oh.
I love it though, because a lot of my clients, they say you've changed our behavior. We don't post and pray anymore.
It's easier for them to become hunters, right? So
exactly. And they feel empowered because they're bringing over amazing people to their boss, making them look amazing, right? Okay, well, final thoughts as we wrap up here. We definitely have gone through a lot and it's very complex and we're all still navigating through it, but anything you guys want to touch on and really hit home with as we kind of end off?
Yeah, it's a job, you know, remember that.
Yeah.
And you're still gonna have a lot of recs tomorrow, and I think, you know, focusing on one perhaps accomplishment that you can do for the day, the week, the month, and yeah, don't work for shitty bosses either. There are plenty of jobs out there. You know, inquire about the culture, ask to speak to other members in the team, and I think that would be my advice. And then, you know, look at those signals. If your mood changes, if you feel you're not being yourself, I used to enjoy cooking a lot, and I realized, you know, in 2021, towards the end of the year, that I could not be bothered to engage in that activity. And there was a lot of other signals like that. And for me, that I was not, you know, feeling burnout. I was like 6 a.m. calls, like feeling but that my body was telling me something else. So that's my parting message.
You know, Joss, you bring up a great point, though. I think even Kelly had made a comment earlier about working remotely. Sometimes as recruiters, some of us want to work remote. Some of us actually like the interaction of recruiting, right? We love not only talking with people, but we love the bullpen environment of having other recruiters around us, right? And having that. And my own team, what I found during the pandemic when we sent everybody home remotely is I had a couple of recruiters that shined. They actually were better working remotely than they were in the office. I had some that failed miserably and needed to be back. And I think it's super important for you to find the environment that you work best in, that you're most successful. Now you might say, oh, I'm most successful working remotely. If the data shows you're not, you're going to feel burned out, even though you're working remotely. If the data shows you work great in an office, then get a job in an office and be successful, because like, again, you're less likely to be burned out if you're successful. But again, find the environment that you're best in and then try to do that. And again, the one thing I love about recruiting is I think the pandemic has showed us that all recruiters can have much more flexibility. You don't have to be into that, you know, same 8 to 5 kind of role. you can work on weekends and evenings and at home and on the road or wherever, and have that ultimate flexibility. We have the career that could have the ultimate flexibility, which I think is helpful. But like Kelly said, like sometimes we need that real in touch person. And we want to have that person next to us doing the same thing and feeling that energy that I think a lot of us fell in love with in recruiting.
Absolutely. I think those are really true points. The only thing I'd really add is also, like, if you're a social butterfly, maybe the office is not the most productive place for you. And if you're an introvert, maybe at home is not the most productive place for you. So you almost have to relearn how you learn now that we have the option to work from home and remotely. Last thing, actually, we have an ebook coming out. Joss, you want to talk a little about our ebook? And it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So we are going to talk a lot about what we discussed today. It's going to be in the ebook. You can download it and engage with your team, your boss on the recruiter burnout issue. So we are going to you are going to receive a notification, a message with download very soon.
Yes, every attendee, you'll receive an email and you'll be able to get the download of this webinar as well as that ebook, and really just stay in touch with us on LinkedIn, please. Last thing today is we are drawing our winner for our prize, and I'm doing it a little bit.
Appreciation.
Yes, I'm doing it a little bit. I have my Visage hat here, my names. So you guys want to give me a drum roll? Okay, we've got, let me see.
If I win, it's a complete plant.
Stephanie Geist. Geist, I hope that properly. Stephanie Geist. That is our winner. Woo!
All right.
$500 massage and spa.
Yeah, nice. Incredible. We're going to be doing more of these at least once a quarter, hopefully more frequently than that. So please follow Visage and get your TA team involved and pay it forward with an amazing prize. I want it, Joss.
Congrats, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate everybody's time today. I know we're all busy, but please do follow Visage. If you'd like a demo, let me know. Tim, really appreciate your time. Joss, you as well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
You. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you later. Bye, Chloe.
And bye guys. If you have questions, let me know.